What happens when the weakest member of the pack discovers she was never weak at all? For Alara Ashwood, life in the Crescent Moon Pack meant keeping her head down, her voice quiet, and her dreams small. As an Omega, the lowest rank in the ancient werewolf hierarchy, she'd learned early that survival meant invisibility. While alphas commanded with voices that could shake mountains, and betas enforced their will with iron discipline, Omegas existed in the shadows, their wolves subdued, their scents barely noticeable, their very existence an afterthought in pack politics. But when Alpha Caden Blackthorn rejected her as his fated mate in front of the entire pack during the Harvest Moon ceremony, severing their bond with words that cut deeper than any claw, everything changed. And what happens next, no one was prepared for. Because Alara Ashwood wasn't just an Omega, she was the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy, her power bound by magic since infancy, her true nature hidden even from herself. And the moment that rejection shattered the mystical chains that held her wolf captive, 10 guardian warriors who'd been searching for her across centuries finally found what they'd been seeking. Their matriarch, their queen, their salvation. The autumn air carried the scent of pine and anticipation as hundreds of wolves gathered in the sacred clearing. Alara stood at the edge of the crowd, her slight frame barely visible among the stronger, larger pack members. She wore a simple gray dress, nothing like the vibrant colors the higher-ranked females displayed, and kept her eyes lowered, a habit ingrained through 19 years of knowing her place. Her scent was barely perceptible, a whisper of lavender and morning dew, wild flowers after rain. Nothing commanding, nothing powerful, nothing that would make anyone look twice. The Harvest Moon ceremony was the most important event of the year, when the pack renewed its bonds with the moon goddess and newly mated pairs received her blessing. This year, it held special significance. Alpha Caden Blackthorn, at 25, was expected to publicly claim his mate before the pack and formally announce his Luna. Alara's heart hammered against her ribs. 3 months ago, under a different moon, she'd felt it, the snap of recognition, the pull of destiny. The mate bond had clicked into place like a key turning in a lock, flooding her with warmth and certainty and terrifying hope. Caden was her fated mate, chosen by the moon goddess herself. She'd told no one. How could she? An Omega mated to an Alpha. It was unheard of, unnatural. The hierarchy existed for a reason, her mother had always said. Alphas needed strong Lunas who could stand beside them, produce powerful heirs, command respect. Not fragile Omegas who couldn't even fully shift. But the bond didn't lie. And somewhere deep in her chest, her wolf, that barely there presence she'd lived with her whole life, had stirred with something almost like recognition. "Everyone, gather close," called Marcus, the pack's beta. His voice carried the authority of his rank, sharp and commanding. The scent of leather and smoke that always surrounded him grew stronger as he moved through the crowd. "Alpha Blackthorn will address the pack." Caden stepped onto the raised stone platform at the clearing's center. He was magnificent, tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair and eyes like storm clouds. Power radiated from him in waves. His scent filled the clearing, forest loam and burning embers, ozone before a lightning strike, steel fresh from the forge. Pure dominance. Alara's wolf whimpered. "Mate," she whispered in that small, suppressed voice. "Our mate." "My pack," Caden began, his voice carrying to every corner of the clearing. "Tonight, under the harvest moon, I claim my Luna." A wave of excitement rippled through the crowd. Alara's heart soared for one perfect, foolish moment. Then Vivienne Redmayne stepped onto the platform beside him. She was beautiful, tall and curved, with auburn hair that caught the moonlight and amber eyes that gleamed with triumph. Her scent rolled over the crowd, cinnamon and iron, blood and victory. She was a beta, daughter of the pack's head enforcer, and she'd made no secret of her desire to be Luna. "Vivian Redmayne," Cadence said, taking her hand. "You will stand beside me as Luna of the Crescent Moon Pack." The crowd erupted in cheers, but Alara couldn't hear them over the roaring in her ears. This wasn't possible. The bond, she felt it, pulling at her chest, screaming that this was wrong. "But first," Caden continued, and his eyes scanned the crowd until they found her. Found her. There is a matter that must be addressed. Time stopped. 2 guards moved through the crowd, their hands closing on Alara's arms before she could even think to run. They dragged her forward, and the crowd parted like she carried plague. Whispers followed her, shocked, disgusted, confused. "Alara Ashwood," Caden said, and his voice was ice. "3 months ago, fate saw fit to forge a bond between us. A mistake, an aberration. The moon goddess herself must have been testing me." Alara's legs nearly gave out. He knew. He'd known this whole time, and he'd said nothing. Done nothing. Let her hope. "I, Caden Blackthorn, Alpha of the Crescent Moon Pack, formally reject you as my mate. I sever this bond before the moon goddess and before my pack." The pain hit like a physical blow. The bond, that golden thread she'd cherished in secret, turned to molten agony in her chest. She gasped, doubling over, her hands clutching at her heart as if she could hold the breaking pieces together. "I reject this bond," Caden continued, relentless. "I reject you. You are not worthy to be Luna. You are not worthy to stand beside me. You are nothing but an Omega, and you will always be nothing." The bond snapped. Alara screamed, the sound tearing from her throat as something fundamental inside her shattered. It felt like her soul was being ripped apart, threads of golden light turning black and disintegrating into ash. Through her tears, she saw Vivian smiling. "Take her," Caden commanded. "Remove her from Packlands. She is cast out." "No." Alara's voice was barely a whisper. She looked desperately toward the crowd, searching for her parents. "Mother! Father! Please!" She found them. Thomas and Margaret Ashwood stood together, their faces carefully blank. Her father's scent, earth and old paper, was laced with something bitter. Fear. Her mother wouldn't meet her eyes. "Please," Alara begged. Her mother turned away. Her father's hand tightened on his wife's shoulder, and they both stepped back into the crowd, disappearing from view. They didn't speak, didn't defend her, didn't claim her. "The Omega is no longer Pack," Marcus announced, his voice cutting through her sobs. "She is rogue. If she sets foot on our territory again, she will be killed on sight." The guards dragged her toward the forest's edge. Alara's legs couldn't support her anymore, and they simply hauled her between them like a sack of grain. The pain in her chest was overwhelming, radiating through every nerve, making it hard to breathe. At the boundary line, they threw her to the ground. "You have until sunrise," one guard said, not unkindly. "Then we patrol. Run far and fast, Omega." They left her there in the dirt, curled around her shattered bond, as the sounds of the ceremony continued behind her. She heard them celebrating, heard Caden's voice, strong and certain, proclaiming Vivian as his Luna. The scent of lavender and morning dew grew fainter, as if even that small part of her was fading away. Alara didn't know how long she lay there. Minutes. Hours. The moon rose higher, full and silver and uncaring. Eventually, the cold penetrated the numbness, and survival instinct forced her to move. She stumbled into the forest, no destination in mind. She just walked, branches tearing at her dress, rocks cutting her bare feet. The rejection pain still pulsed with every heartbeat, a constant reminder of what she'd lost, what she'd never really had. She didn't notice when she crossed into the neutral territories between pack lands, didn't notice when the sky began to darken with gathering storm clouds, didn't notice anything until the first snowflake landed on her cheek. Impossible. It was autumn. Too early for snow. But the sky didn't care about seasons. Within minutes, the wind picked up, howling through the trees with savage fury. Snow fell in thick, blinding sheets, turning the world white and deadly. Elara wrapped her arms around herself, her thin dress offering no protection. She needed shelter, needed to shift into her wolf form for warmth. She reached for her wolf and found almost nothing. Just that faint, suppressed presence, too weak to manifest. She'd never been able to fully shift. The best she'd managed were partial changes, claws or fangs, never enough. "Please," she whispered to the absent moon goddess. "Please, I just need—" But her wolf remained silent, trapped, useless. The temperature plummeted. Elara's lips turned blue, her fingers numb. She kept walking because stopping meant death. But every step grew harder. The world tilted and spun. Through the whiteout, she glimpsed a dark shape, a structure. She stumbled toward it, an old barn, half collapsed, reeking of rot and abandonment. But it was shelter. She crawled inside, finding a corner where the roof still held. Moldy hay provided a thin barrier between her and the frozen ground. She curled into the smallest ball possible, trying to preserve what little warmth remained in her body. The storm raged outside. The wind shrieked through gaps in the walls. Snow drifted through the broken roof, accumulating around her. This was it. She was going to die here, alone and rejected, in a forgotten barn in the middle of nowhere. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd survived 19 years as the weakest member of her pack, only to die hours after being cast out. Her eyes grew heavy. The cold didn't hurt anymore. That was bad. She knew distantly. That meant hypothermia. Meant the end. "I'm sorry," she whispered to no one. Maybe to her wolf. Maybe to the moon goddess. "I tried. I really tried to be good enough." The darkness closed in, and Elara Ashwood surrendered to it. Warmth. That was the first thing she registered. Not the burning warmth of fire, but the living heat of bodies pressed close. Breathing. Elara's eyes fluttered open, and she froze. Wolves surrounded her. Massive wolves, each one larger than any alpha she'd ever seen. They lay in a circle around her, their bodies forming a living barrier against the cold. She could feel their warmth radiating, could hear their steady breathing, could smell. The scent hit her like a tidal wave. Aged oak and winter snow. Pine forests and approaching storms. Stone and steel and ancient earth. Power. Pure, overwhelming power. One wolf lay closest to her, his massive head resting near her shoulder. His fur was silver gray, almost white, with darker markings along his spine. Even lying down, he was enormous, easily twice the size of Caden in wolf form. Elara's breath caught. She should be terrified, should be screaming. These weren't normal wolves. Couldn't be. But she wasn't afraid. Her barely there wolf stirred, and for the first time in her life, she felt it clearly. Felt her wolf press against her consciousness with something that felt like recognition. Like coming home. "Pack," her wolf whispered. "Safe." Slowly, carefully, Elara lifted her head. She began counting the wolves around her. 1, the silver gray one closest to her. 2, a massive black wolf with battle scars across his muzzle. 3, a russet-colored female with intelligent gold eyes. 4, a wolf with fur the color of dark steel. She kept counting. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 massive wolves, all larger than any she'd ever seen, all radiating the same overwhelming power. They'd formed a perfect circle around her, protecting her through the night, keeping her alive with their body heat. The storm had passed. Weak morning light filtered through the barn's broken roof. The wolves remained perfectly still, watching her with eyes that held far too much intelligence for animals. The silver-gray wolf lifted his head. His eyes met hers, deep amber, flecked with silver, ancient, knowing. Reality shifted. The air itself seemed to shimmer, and the wolf before her began to change. Ilara had seen hundreds of transformations in her life, but nothing like this. There was no violence to it, no cracking bones or tearing flesh. The change flowed like water, like poetry in motion. Fur receded, bones reshaped, and within moments, a man knelt where the wolf had been. He was older than Caden, perhaps in his mid-30s, with silver-streaked dark hair and those same amber-silver eyes. His face was all sharp planes and old scars, the kind earned in battles that meant something. He wore simple dark clothing that had appeared with the shift, and his presence filled the barn the way his scent did, undeniable, absolute. "You're awake," he said, his voice like whiskey and smoke. "Good. We were starting to worry." Ilara scrambled backward, her back hitting the barn wall. "Who? What?" "My name is Ronan," he said calmly, not moving toward her. "Ronan Stormclaw. And you, Ilara Ashwood, are exactly who we've been searching for." "I don't understand." Her voice shook. "Please. I don't have anything. I'm just an Omega?" Ronan's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Is that what they told you? Is that what you believe?" "It's what I am." The words hurt to say, but they were true. The rejection proved it. If she'd been worthy, strong, powerful, Caden wouldn't have cast her aside. "No." Ronan's voice carried absolute certainty. "You are so much more than that. And the fact that you don't know." He shook his head slowly. "They really did bind you from the beginning." "Bind me?" "I don't. Your parents." His eyes held a mixture of anger and pity. "They bound your wolf when you were an infant, sealed away your true nature with ancient magic, made you believe you were weak, powerless. And last night, when that fool Alpha rejected you, he unknowingly did what we could not." Ilara's chest tightened. "What do you mean?" "The rejection shattered the binding. The pain you felt. That wasn't just a mate bond breaking. It was chains falling away." Ronan leaned forward slightly, his scent wrapping around her like a protective blanket. "Your wolf is waking up, Ilara, and when she fully emerges, the entire werewolf world will remember what they've forgotten." "Remember what?" "The prophecy." His words fell like stones into still water. "The one every pack mother used to whisper to her pups. When the silver moon bleeds red with sorrow, the matriarch will rise from ash and cold. She will be marked by rejection's bitter arrow. She will come when ancient bonds break hold. Her power will shake the mountains. Her mercy will humble kings, and 10 sworn guards will find her before death's shadow brings its final sting." The words resonated in Ilara's chest, in her bones, in the space where her wolf stirred with increasing urgency. "The matriarch," she whispered. That's just a story. A fairy tale." "Is it?" Ronan gestured to the 9 other wolves who had begun their own transformations. "We are the Shadow Guard, warriors sworn by blood and prophecy to serve the matriarch when she emerged. We've been searching for you for 300 years, following signs and portents, waiting for the day the binding would break. One by one, the wolves became people, 9 warriors, each bearing the scars and bearing of seasoned fighters. 3 women. 6 men. All of them looked at her with a mixture of reverence and relief that made her deeply uncomfortable. "This is insane," Alara said. "I'm nobody. I can't even shift properly. Her wolf surged forward suddenly, and Alara gasped. The presence that had always been so faint, so subdued, suddenly felt huge, vast, powerful beyond anything she could have imagined. "Let me out," her wolf demanded, her voice no longer a whisper, but a command. "Let me show you who we are." "Alara," Ronan's voice cut through her panic. "Don't fight it. Let her rise. We're here. We'll keep you safe." "I don't know how." Tears streamed down her face. "I've never been able to—" "Yes, you have," her wolf said. "The binding prevented it. But the binding is broken. Trust me. Trust yourself." Alara closed her eyes, and for the first time in her life, stopped fighting against her wolf, stopped pushing down, stopped making herself small. She let go. The transformation didn't hurt. That was the first shock. She'd always heard that shifting for the first time was agony. Bones breaking and reforming, flesh tearing and rebuilding. But this was nothing like that. This was like being a seed, finally allowed to become a tree. Like being a river, finally permitted to flow to the ocean. Like being herself for the first time. Her bones didn't break. They flowed, lengthening and reshaping with a sensation that was strange but not painful. Fur emerged in a wave of silver-white light, each strand infused with an inner glow. Her senses exploded outward, scent becoming a 3-dimensional map of the world, hearing expanding to catch every heartbeat in a mile radius. Sight sharpening until she could see individual motes of dust dancing in the sunlight. She grew, and grew, and grew. When the transformation completed, Alara stood on 4 powerful legs, her head nearly brushing the barn's broken rafters. She was massive, larger than Ronan, larger than any of the Shadow Guard, certainly larger than any alpha she'd ever seen. Her fur was silver-white, like moonlight made solid, with faint markings of starlight along her spine that pulsed with inner radiance. When she looked down at her paws, she saw they glowed faintly, leaving luminous prints that faded slowly. And her eyes, she could feel the power in them, could sense the color even without seeing her reflection. Not amber or gold or brown. Silver. Pure mercury silver, glowing like molten metal. "We are free," her wolf exulted. "We are whole." Energy built inside her, building and building like pressure behind a dam. She needed to release it, needed to let the world know that something fundamental had changed. Alara threw her head back and howled. The sound shook the barn to its foundations. Birds exploded from trees for miles around. The very earth seemed to tremble with it. The howl carried power and authority, and 300 years of suppressed destiny finally unleashed. The Shadow Guard dropped to their knees as one, their heads bowed. "She is the matriarch," Ronan said, his voice thick with emotion. "She is risen." Outside the barn, in the forest beyond, creatures that had been watching with predatory interest turned and fled. The howl of the matriarch was not something any sane wolf would challenge. And in the Crescent Moonpack's territory, miles away, Alpha Caden Blackthorn froze mid-sentence during the morning council meeting, his coffee cup shattering on the floor as a chill ran down his spine. That howl, that power. What had he done? The transformation back to human form was just as fluid as the shift into wolf. Alara stood in the barn, human again, staring at her hands as if they belonged to a stranger. "How do you feel?" asked one of the female warriors, a woman with dark skin and kind eyes, who'd introduced herself as Kira. "I feel Ilara struggled for words. Everything. I feel everything. It was true. The world was sharper now, more vivid. She could smell each individual guard member's unique scent. Ronan's oak and winter, Kira's rain and wildflower, Marcus's, not to be confused with her old pack's beta, copper and earth. She could hear their heartbeats, steady and strong. Could sense their emotions through some new sixth sense she'd never had before. And her wolf, her magnificent, powerful wolf, was right there, no longer trapped behind walls of binding magic, a constant, comforting presence. We are not weak, her wolf said firmly. We never were. Your parents, Ronan said carefully, offering her a cloak that another guard member had retrieved from somewhere. They had their reasons, though those reasons may not seem justified to you now. Ilara wrapped the cloak around herself, grateful for the coverage. Tell me. I need to understand why they would do this. Ronan gestured for her to sit, and the guards arranged themselves around her in a loose, protective circle. It should have felt overwhelming, but somehow, it felt right. Like pieces of a puzzle finally fitting together. 19 years ago, Ronan began, your mother gave birth to you during a lunar eclipse. The signs were clear. You were the prophesied matriarch, but your parents were terrified. Of me? The thought was absurd and painful in equal measure. Of what you represented, of the power you would wield, of the danger you would face. He leaned forward, his amber eyes intense. The last matriarch was assassinated 300 years ago, along with her entire bloodline. The packs have lived without central leadership since then, fragmenting into hundreds of territories, each with their own alpha, all fighting for dominance. Your parents feared that if your identity was known, enemies would kill you before you could claim your power. So they bound my wolf. Ilara's voice was flat. Made me weak. Made me prey. They thought they were protecting you, Kira added softly. The binding was meant to be temporary, until you were old enough to defend yourself. But the magic, it was stronger than they anticipated. It rooted deep, became part of your foundation. They couldn't undo it without killing you. Until the rejection. Understanding dawned, cold and terrible. Caden breaking the mate bond shattered the binding from the inside out, Ronan confirmed. The pain of rejection was strong enough to crack what your parents couldn't safely remove. In trying to destroy you, he freed you. A laugh bubbled up in Ilara's throat, slightly hysterical. So I should thank him? You should pity him, said another guard member, a scarred man named Drake. He rejected the matriarch. When the truth comes out, and it will, his name will be remembered forever as the alpha who threw away destiny for a beta who can't even bear him strong heirs. How do you know she can't? Vivian Redmond's medical records aren't as private as she thinks, Drake said with a dark smile. The Shadow Guard has spent 3 centuries building information networks. We know everything about everyone who might pose a threat to you. The casual mention of surveillance should have bothered her more. But right now, Ilara had bigger concerns. The prophecy mentioned I would shake mountains and humble kings. She looked at Ronan. What exactly am I supposed to do? Unite the packs, he said simply. End the 3-century war. Restore order to our world. The matriarch is more than just a leader. She's a living connection to the moon goddess. A source of power and wisdom that all packs can draw from. With you leading, the strongest alphas will bend knee willingly, seeking your blessing and guidance. And the ones who won't bend willingly? Ronan's smile was sharp. That's what we're for. Over the next hour, Ronan explained the full extent of what being the matriarch meant. Ilara would be able to sense the emotional and physical state of any wolf in her territory. She could heal injuries with a touch, though it would drain her considerably. She could issue commands that no wolf, not even the strongest alpha, could resist. Her very presence would strengthen pack bonds, increase fertility, and bring prosperity. And she would live for centuries, aging slowly, a constant pillar for her people. "It's too much," Alara said finally. "I don't know how to be this person. A week ago, I was afraid to speak in pack meetings. How am I supposed to rule entire packs?" "You learn," Kira said gently. "We teach you. That's why we're here." "Days turn to weeks," Ronan added. "You won't master everything overnight, but you will master it." Alara looked at each of the 10 warriors surrounding her. The Shadow Guard, her guard. Each had sworn oaths before they were born, bound by prophecy to serve a matriarch who hadn't yet existed. They'd lived for centuries searching for her, never aging, never dying, held in stasis by the same magic that had created the prophecy. "Why?" she asked Ronan. "Why do you serve? You're powerful enough to rule on your own. Each of you could be alphas of your own packs." "Because we were there," he said quietly. 300 years ago, when the matriarch was murdered. We were young warriors in her guard, and we failed her. Failed to protect her when enemies struck in the night. Failed to prevent the massacre that followed. His scent, oak and winter, grew heavy with old grief. "The moon goddess gave us a choice," Ronan continued. "Die with our shame, or live to serve the next matriarch, to ensure that this time we would not fail. We chose to live. We chose to wait. And now we choose to serve you, Alara Ashwood. Not because we must, but because we have seen what a world without the matriarch becomes. Fractured, brutal, lost. We will not let that happen again." The weight of his words settled over her. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every pack, every wolf, every life that could be saved or destroyed by what she chose to do next. "Then teach me," she said, her voice stronger than before. "Teach me everything." And they did. The training began immediately. Ronan took charge of teaching her to control her shifting, to move between forms as easily as breathing. At first, the transformations left her exhausted, but with practice, they became smoother, faster, costing less energy each time. Kira taught her to harness her empathic abilities. "Close your eyes," she instructed. "Reach out with your senses, not smell or hearing. Deeper. Feel the emotions around you." Alara tried, and the world exploded into a kaleidoscope of feelings. Ronan's steady determination, laced with old pain. Drake's fierce protective pride. Kira's gentle warmth and underlying sorrow. 10 distinct emotional signatures, each as unique as their sense. "Good," Kira encouraged. "Now pull back. You don't want to drown in everyone else's feelings. Learn to observe without absorbing." It took days to master that balance, to sense emotions without being overwhelmed by them. But once she did, Alara understood the true power of it. She would always know if someone was lying, if they were frightened, or angry, or planning betrayal. No one could hide from her. A tall, quiet guard member named Silas taught her combat. Not the fighting she might learn as a wolf. This was strategy, reading opponents, understanding pack dynamics and hierarchy. "You're not just physically stronger now," Silas explained, blocking her punch with ease. "You're a symbol. When you face challengers, and you will, it's not enough to defeat them. You must do it in a way that proves your right to rule." "So I need to humiliate them?" The thought made her uncomfortable. "You need to show mercy where others would show cruelty. Strength where others would show weakness. Justice where others would show vengeance." He dropped into a fighting stance. Again. And this time, think about what you're teaching anyone who watches. Between training sessions, The guards shared meals with her, told stories of the old days, treated her not as a prophecy or a weapon, but as a person, a friend. Found family in the truest sense. Drake was the jokester, always ready with a sarcastic comment that could lighten the darkest mood. Kira was the mother hen, ensuring Alara ate enough, slept enough, didn't push too hard. Marcus, the guard, not the beta, was quiet but observant, often offering insights just when she needed them. And Ronan was complicated. He was her primary teacher, her constant companion, her fiercest protector. He pushed her harder than anyone else, demanded more, expected perfection. But he also knew exactly when she'd reached her limit, when the encouragement needed to shift to comfort. His scent had become as familiar as her own. Oak and winter, steady and strong. When he stood close to her during training, showing her how to channel power through her claws, or teaching her the ancient laws she'd need to know, Alara felt something in her chest that had nothing to do with mate bonds or destiny. This was choice. Pure, simple choice. The kind Caden had stolen from her, the kind she was reclaiming one day at a time. "You're getting stronger," Ronan observed one evening, as they sat by the fire the guards had built outside the barn, now cleaned and reinforced to serve as their temporary headquarters. "I don't feel strong," Alara admitted. "I feel like I'm pretending, playing dress-up in someone else's power. That feeling will pass." He handed her a cup of tea, their fingers brushing. "The power has always been yours. You're just learning to recognize it." What if I fail? The question she'd been afraid to ask. What if I can't do what the prophecy says? What if I'm not enough? Ronan was quiet for a moment, staring into the fire. Then he said, 300 years ago I watched the last matriarch address a council of quarreling alphas. She was younger than you, barely 16, and she was terrified. I could smell the fear on her. But she stood before those alphas and spoke with such conviction, such certainty in the rightness of her cause, that grown warriors twice her age knelt in submission. He turned to look at Alara, firelight reflecting in his amber eyes. She told me later that she felt like a fraud every single day, that she had no idea what she was doing, that she was terrified of making mistakes. But she showed up anyway, did the work anyway, became who her people needed anyway. He smiled slightly. You don't need to have all the answers, Alara. You just need to keep trying, keep learning, keep being exactly who you are. The scent of lavender and morning dew mixed with oak and winter in the night air. A wave of warmth washed over Alara, not from the fire, but from something deeper, something real. Thank you, she said softly, for waiting, for finding me, for believing I could be this. Always, Ronan replied, and the promise in that single word felt more binding than any mate bond ever could. Days turned to weeks. Alara grew stronger, more confident, more comfortable in her skin and her power. Her wolf was no longer a separate entity, but an integrated part of herself, their thoughts and instincts merging seamlessly. She practiced her healing abilities on small wounds first. A guard member's scraped knee, a torn muscle. The energy flowed through her like water, warm and golden, knitting flesh and easing pain. It did drain her, but with each healing, she grew more efficient, learned to moderate the power output. The command ability was trickier. It required her to project her will, her authority, in a way that couldn't be ignored. When she first successfully commanded Drake to freeze mid-step during a practice bout, the look of shock on his face had been almost comical. That's unnerving, he'd said once she released him. It's like my body just obeyed, without consulting my brain. I hate it, Alara confessed. Good, Ronan had said. The best rulers are the ones who hate their own power. It means you'll use it carefully. She learned the territories by heart, which packs bordered which alphas were known for aggression, which were more diplomatic. She studied the old laws, the traditions that had guided packs for millennia before the matriarch's death had fractured everything. And she bonded with her guards in ways that went beyond training. Movie nights where they introduced her to centuries of cinema she'd missed. Cooking together, with Drake proving surprisingly skilled in the kitchen. Late-night conversations about philosophy, pack dynamics, and the future they were building together. She was no longer the rejected Omega, cowering in the shadows. She was Alara Ashwood, the matriarch, and she had a family who would die to protect her. But all training eventually leads to testing, and Alara's test was coming faster than any of them anticipated. The scout appeared on the 4th week, a young wolf barely out of adolescence who'd been hunting in the area and caught the scent of the matriarch's howl from weeks past. He'd tracked them, curious and foolish, right to their headquarters. Drake caught him easily, hauling the struggling wolf into the barn by his scruff. "Please," the scout gasped once, forced back into human form. "I didn't know. I didn't mean to trespass." Alara studied him with her enhanced senses. Fear, yes, but also excitement, curiosity, no malice. He was a beta from... She sorted through the scent markers. The Crescent Moon pack, her old pack. "Who sent you?" she asked calmly. "No one. I swear. I was just hunting, and I caught this scent, this power, and I wanted to know what it was." The boy's eyes widened as he finally looked at her properly. "Wait, you're the Omega, the one Alpha Blackthorn rejected." "I was," Alara corrected. "I'm not anymore." "What are you?" He looked around at the Shadow Guard, all of whom had moved into protective positions around her. "What are all of you?" Ronan stepped forward. "You have 2 choices, pup. 1. You leave now. Run far and fast. Forget everything you've seen, and never speak of this place. 2. You stay and hear the truth, but if you do, you become part of something larger than yourself. Choose." The scout looked from Ronan to Alara and back again. "I want to hear the truth." Kira sighed. They always do. So they told him about the prophecy, the binding, the rejection that freed her, the Shadow Guard's 3-century search. The scout's eyes grew wider with every revelation. "The matriarch," he breathed. "The old stories are real." "Very real," Alara confirmed. "And soon, I'll need to make my presence known. But not yet. I need more time." The scout nodded eagerly. Then his expression darkened. "Alpha Blackthorn. He's been different since the rejection. Paranoid. Angry. He's been increasing border patrols, demanding more tribute from smaller packs. Luna Vivian encourages it. She wants to expand the territory, wants him to be feared." "Do they know I survived?" Alara asked. "I don't think so. You were supposed to die in that storm. When you didn't come back. They just assumed you were dead." Alara looked at Ronan, who nodded slightly. A plan was forming. "Here's what you're going to do," she told the scout. "You're going to go back to the Crescent Moon pack. You're going to tell them you found tracks, evidence that the rejected Omega is alive and living in the neutral territories. Can you do that?" "Yes, but..." "Why?" "Because I want Caden to come looking for me," Alara said, her voice hard. "I want him to see what he threw away, and I want him to kneel." The scout shivered, whether from fear or excitement. She couldn't tell. "He won't come alone. I'm counting on it." They released the scout at sunset. He ran back toward Crescent Moon territory, carrying news that would shake the pack to its foundations. "Are you sure about this?" Kira asked, as they watched him disappear into the trees. "No," Alara admitted. "But I'm tired of hiding. Tired of being afraid. If I'm going to be the matriarch, I need to start acting like it. Ronan placed a hand on her shoulder. They'll bring at least 20 wolves, probably more. Good. Her wolf stirred, eager and ready. Let them see what happens when you reject the matriarch. The bond snapped into place, not a mate bond, but something deeper, the certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be, with exactly the people who were meant to stand beside her. 3 days later, they came. Elara stood in the clearing outside the barn, the shadow guard arrayed behind her in 2 precise lines. She dressed carefully for this, not in the gray rags of an Omega, but in clothes Kira had procured. Black pants, a silver tunic that caught the light, boots that would survive a shift. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, and her eyes gleamed mercury silver in the afternoon sun. She looked like a queen, felt like one too. The crescent moon wolves appeared at the tree line, 23 of them, all in human form, all armed. Caden led them, with Vivian at his side, and Beta Marcus flanking them. Caden's scent hit her, forest and embers, ozone and steel, and Elara felt nothing. No pull, no pain. The rejection had been complete, the bond truly severed. He was just another alpha now. Nothing more. Elara, Caden's voice carried across the clearing. I heard you were alive. I had to see for myself. Why? She asked. You made it clear I meant nothing to you. I made a mistake. He took a step forward, and several shadow guards tensed. You should have done exactly what you did, Elara interrupted. You freed me, Caden. Gave me a gift you didn't even know you were giving. Vivian laughed, the sound harsh and mocking. Look at you, playing dress-up with your rogue friends. Did you really think putting on nice clothes would make you anything but an Omega? Vivienne, Caden's tone was warning. Let me handle this. But Vivian was already moving, shifting mid-stride into her wolf form. She was beautiful, sleek and auburn, larger than a beta had any right to be. The scent of cinnamon and iron and blood rolled off her in waves. She lunged at Elara, claws extended, fangs bared. Elara didn't move. Ronan did. He was between them in a heartbeat, his hand catching Vivian's throat mid-leap, slamming her to the ground hard enough to crack earth. She yelped, struggling, but he held her there effortlessly. The matriarch, he said, his voice carrying to every wolf present, does not fight Luna challenges from betas. It would be beneath her. Matriarch? Caden's scent spiked with confusion and fear. What are you talking about? Allow me to show you. Elara smiled and let her wolf rise. The transformation was instant, fluid, beautiful. In seconds, she stood before them in her true form, the massive silver-white wolf with starlight markings and mercury eyes that glowed like molten metal. She was enormous, terrifying, magnificent. The crescent moon wolves stepped back as one. Several dropped to their knees instinctively, unable to fight the pull of her power. When the silver moon bleeds red with sorrow, Elara's voice echoed in the minds of every wolf present. The matriarch will rise. It's not possible, Vivian gasped from the ground. The matriarch is a myth. Is she? Kira asked, amused. Drake, why don't you and the others show our guests what we really are? The shadow guard shifted together. 10 massive transformations, 10 wolves that made even Caden's alpha form look small and weak. Not normal wolves, not even close. They were dire wolves, the ancient guardians spoken of in the oldest legends, thought to be extinct. Each one larger than life, covered in battle scars, radiating power that made the air itself feel heavy. The crescent moon wolves' courage broke. Several ran. Others simply collapsed, unable to process what they were seeing. Only Caden remained standing, though his face had gone bone white. You rejected me, Elara said, her wolf's voice carrying perfect clarity. Cast me out to die, made me believe I was nothing. She moved forward, each step deliberate. Caden stood his ground, though she could smell his terror. You did me a favor, she continued, because in trying to destroy me, you freed me. You broke the binding that had kept my power locked away since birth. You gave me the chance to become who I was always meant to be. She stopped directly in front of him, towering over him even as he stood at his full alpha height. Kneel. It wasn't a request, it was a command, backed by the full force of her authority as matriarch. Caden's legs buckled, dropping him to his knees before her, whether he wanted to or not. Around them, every crescent moon wolf still conscious fell to their knees as well. The power of her command was absolute. "Mercy," Caden gasped. "Please." "I didn't know." "You didn't know, because you didn't care to know," Alara said. "You judged me based on a hierarchy designed to make some wolves feel superior and others feel worthless. You chose ambition over destiny, pride over compassion." She shifted back to human form, looking down at the kneeling alpha. "But I am not you, Caden Blackthorn. I choose justice over vengeance. So here is your punishment. You will return to your pack and announce the matriarch's return. You will prepare your people for her arrival. And when I come to your territory, you will kneel again, this time in front of your entire pack, and you will acknowledge your mistake. And if I refuse," his voice was barely a whisper, "then your pack will find a new alpha." She smiled without warmth, one who understands that the matriarch's authority supersedes all others. She turned to address the assembled wolves. "From this day forward, the old ways are restored. The matriarch has returned, and with her, a new era begins. Packs will no longer war for territory. Omegas will no longer be treated as lesser. The hierarchies that divide us will be reformed." Her voice rang with power and certainty. "I am Alara Ashwood, the matriarch of all packs. This is my territory now. These are my laws, and any who challenge them will answer to me and my shadow guard." A wave of power washed over the clearing, sealing the proclamation with magic that would carry her words to every pack within 100 miles. Vivienne, still pinned beneath Ronan's hand, snarled. "You can't just change everything. The packs won't accept." "The packs will accept their matriarch," Ronan said coldly, "or they will be reminded why the old laws existed. We've been patient for 3 centuries. Our patience has limits." He released Vivienne, who scrambled back to Caden's side. The Luna's eyes held pure hatred, but also fear. She'd just tried to attack the matriarch and lived. Next time, she might not be so lucky. "Go," Alara commanded. "Spread the word. The matriarch has risen, and the age of division is ending." The Crescent Moon wolves fled, some carrying injured comrades, all bearing the weight of what they'd witnessed. Only Caden remained, still on his knees, staring at her with something that might have been regret. "I really did make a mistake," he said quietly. "The biggest of my life." "Yes," Alara agreed. "You did. But you also gave me the greatest gift, the chance to find my real family. The ones who see me for who I am, not what they wanted me to be." She gestured, releasing him from the command. Caden stood slowly, his scent heavy with defeat. "When you come to the pack," he began. "I'll come when I'm ready, and when I do, I expect full cooperation. From you, from Vivienne, from everyone." Her eyes flashed silver. "This is not a request, Alpha Blackthorn. This is a decree." He nodded and left, his shoulders bowed under the weight of his failure. When the clearing was empty except for the shadow guard, Alara's knees nearly gave out. Ronan caught her. steadying her with hands that were gentle despite their strength. "You were magnificent," he said, pride clear in his voice. "I was terrified," she admitted. "That's what made it magnificent." He smiled. "True courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what must be done despite it." The other guards gathered around, offering quiet congratulations and reassurance. They'd witnessed the birth of a new era, and they'd been privileged to stand beside their matriarch as she claimed her place in history. Time stopped, just for a moment. Ilara looked at the faces surrounding her, these warriors who'd waited centuries, who'd found her in her darkest moment, who'd taught her and protected her and believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. She was no longer Ilara the Omega. She was no longer powerless, worthless, nothing. She was the matriarch. And she had found her true pack. The news spread like wildfire through the werewolf world. The matriarch had returned. The Shadow Guard walked again. The old prophecies were coming true. Some alphas welcomed it, seeing a chance for the stability and prosperity their packs desperately needed. Others resisted, viewing her as a threat to their power and autonomy. Ilara spent the following weeks traveling from pack to pack, always accompanied by her guard. She met with alphas in grand halls and humble cabins. She listened to grievances, settled disputes, began the slow work of rebuilding the connections that had been severed 300 years ago. Some meetings went smoothly, others required demonstrations of power, though Ilara was always careful to show mercy where possible, to prove that the matriarch's rule would be just, not tyrannical. The Crescent Moon Pack's formal acknowledgement ceremony came a month after the confrontation in the clearing. Caden kept his word, kneeling before his entire pack and publicly acknowledging her as matriarch. Vivian stood beside him, her expression carefully neutral. Though Ilara could sense the rage simmering beneath, Ilara's parents were there too. They approached her after the ceremony, their sense heavy with shame and regret. "Ilara," her mother began, tears streaming down her face. "We're so sorry. We thought—" "You thought you were protecting me," Ilara finished. "I know," Ronan explained. "Can you ever forgive us?" her father asked. Ilara considered. The betrayal still hurt. Knowing they'd bound her power, watched her suffer, let her be rejected and cast out. But she also understood, in a way she couldn't have before, the impossible choice they'd faced. Protect their daughter by hiding her, or risk her assassination by revealing her. "I don't know," she said honestly. "Forgiveness is a process, not a moment. You made choices that hurt me, even if your intentions were good. But I'm willing to let you try to earn your way back, to prove that you can support who I am now, not who you tried to make me." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a door left open, a possibility. Her mother sobbed with relief. Her father simply bowed, understanding that this was more grace than they deserved. The months passed. Ilara's power and confidence grew. She was no longer pretending to be the matriarch. She was the matriarch. Her decisions shaped pack law. Her word was absolute. Her presence brought prosperity and peace to territories that had known only conflict. And Ronan? Ronan remained at her side through everything, not as a mate bond dictated, but as a choice made new each day. The scent of oak and winter had become synonymous with home, with safety, with a future she was actively building rather than one thrust upon her. One evening, as they stood together watching the sunset from a ridge overlooking her growing territory, Ronan said, "You know, the prophecy never mentioned anything about the matriarch needing a mate." "No," Ilara agreed. "It didn't. But the Shadow Guard's oath allows for one of us to serve in that capacity if the matriarch chooses." She turned to look at him, this warrior who'd waited centuries, who'd taught her everything, who'd stood beside her through her transformation from victim to victor. "And if I choose?" she asked. "Then I would be honored beyond measure." His amber eyes met hers. "Not because of prophecy or destiny, or bonds we didn't choose, but because I choose you, Ilara Ashwood, every day, every moment. I choose you." The bond snapped into place, not magical, not fated, but real nonetheless. Built on respect and trust and shared purpose. On nights spent training together and days spent building a better world. On the choice to stand together against whatever came next. "I choose you too," she whispered, and kissed him as the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Her wolf stirred, content and whole. "This is right," she said. "This is home." And it was. But peace, as Ilara was learning, was always temporary in the werewolf world. The first sign came 3 months later, during the blood moon. The sky turned crimson, and with it, an ancient evil stirred in the far northern territories. Whispers reached her of wolves gone mad, of darkness spreading, of an old enemy the previous matriarch had sealed away, but never truly defeated. Ilara stood on the balcony of her newly constructed hall, a place where all packs could gather, where the matriarch could hold court, and stared at the blood-red moon. Ronan joined her, his hand finding hers. "It's beginning," he said quietly. "What is?" "The real test." His grip tightened. "The reason the prophecy said you would come, when ancient bonds break hold. The binding on your power wasn't the only thing that was sealed away. There are evils in this world, Ilara, things that were locked away by the last matriarch's dying magic, and now that magic is fading." Ilara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. "What kind of evils?" "The kind that killed the last matriarch." His voice was grim. "The kind that will try to kill you too. But this time," he turned to face her fully, "this time, you have the Shadow Guard. You have your power fully realized, and you have something she didn't." "What's that?" "Knowledge of what's coming." He smiled, fierce and determined. "We've had 300 years to prepare for this moment. Whatever rises from the north, whatever ancient darkness seeks to destroy you, we'll be ready." Around them, the other guards assembled on the balcony, their expressions mirroring Ronan's determination. "The matriarch stands," Kira said softly. "And we stand with her," Drake added. "Always," the rest chorused. Ilara looked at her found family, her chosen mate, her kingdom spread out below. She'd come so far from that broken Omega in the storm. She'd found her power, claimed her throne, begun the work of healing a fractured world. And she was ready for whatever came next. "Let them come," she said, her voice carrying the authority of the matriarch and the determination of a survivor. "Let every enemy, every challenge, every ancient evil that thinks it can destroy us come. They'll learn the same lesson Caden learned." She turned to face the blood moon, her eyes glowing silver in the crimson light. "You don't destroy the matriarch. You kneel before her, or you fall." And so Ilara Ashwood's journey from rejected Omega to sovereign matriarch was complete, though her story was far from over. She'd learned that true power came not from the title you were born with, but from the strength you found within yourself when everything was stripped away. She'd learned that family wasn't always blood. Sometimes it was the warriors who stood beside you through the darkest nights. And she'd learned that rejection, betrayal, and pain could transform into purpose, power, and a crown. The lesson echoed through every pack that bent knee to her. Never underestimate the quiet ones. Never assume the hierarchy defines destiny. And never ever reject what the moon goddess has chosen, because fate has a way of making you regret it. What did you think of Alara's transformation? Have you ever felt underestimated, only to prove everyone wrong? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and share it with fellow wolf romance fans. And don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell. We have more incredible tales coming your way, including the next chapter, where Alara faces the ancient evil awakening in the north. Thank you for listening. We'll see you in the next chapter, where the matriarch's true test begins. Until then, may you find your power, claim your throne, and remember that you were never as weak as they tried to make you believe.